For millions of Canadian children, elementary school is now back in session. Many of them have dutifully handed in their essays about what they did on their summer vacation. Soon enough, they will be cutting out cardboard pumpkins to decorate their classrooms. But if they were in Tiffany Poirier's class, they would have been assigned to write an essay called What I Did on My Summer Vacation and Why, or perhaps, What is the Value of a Summer Vacation? Instead of the ubiquitous Halloween pumpkin project, her little ones will be contemplating the social utility of fear or the unknowable dimensions of the afterlife. Tiffany Poirier is a teacher with the Surrey School Board in British Columbia and an advocate of teaching philosophy to young children in the classroom. She also presents workshops to other teachers, helping them to introduce philosophy education in their classrooms. She has written and illustrated a philosophy book for kids. It's called Q is for Question, an ABC of Philosophy. And Tiffany Poirier joins me now from our studio in Vancouver. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi there.
Nice to have you on the program.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Now, I've read some interviews you've given, some conversations you've had with people, and you make two remarkable statements. I want to look at each one if we can. First, you say children are natural philosophers, and then you said children need philosophy. Let's take the first one first. They're natural philosophers.
Yeah, I think so. From the time a child first comes onto the planet, they are asking questions, maybe not verbally, but with their behaviors. I've got a young son, and I can see, even as he's learning to speak at 1.5 years old, everything he does, it's a question. It might be a scientific question. If I drop this ball, what happens? Should I drop the ball if it makes mommy happy or sad? Should I dump my food all over the floor? You know, he's testing me. They're asking questions. And I think that some of the best philosophers maintain their childhood perspective.
That's Socratic, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
All right. The second statement you made, children need philosophy.
Well, I think that they need to learn the skills for questioning, and critical thinking and creative thinking is a part of that. And this is really important because it develops their mind, but also it helps them to engage in society in meaningful ways and to be critical and to participate in democracy and to be free thinking. There's so many benefits that come from engaging with deep questions.
How did you come up with this idea of teaching philosophy to elementary school students? I take it it's not a regular part of any curriculum that you know of.
Yeah, it's not an official regular part of the curriculum. However, if you read the curriculum guides, like in BC, there's always mention of promoting critical thinking, and this is absolutely a part of it. I came to this when I was in teacher's education, and I had just finished up a philosophy degree and found I wanted to be a teacher, and I wanted to share with my students some of these questions that had so excited my learning process. And I couldn't really find many resources to help me do that. And so I just ended up developing some of my own resources. And the kids got so excited with the types of questions. And I knew that this was going to be the cornerstone of what I would do, just to engage learners.
But I'm intrigued that you wanted to focus on very young children in the elementary system, not high school and not university.
Yeah, well, I think if we look at some of the questions that I explore with these kids, you can see why it could be so exciting to them. I don't start with an introduction to this is Plato and a very formalized classical approach. It's more getting them to generate the questions in their own lives and the things that they wonder about as they lie in bed at night, or the questions they encounter on the playground, and then helping them to see how those are such powerful questions and how deep we can go with them.
But I'm just trying to think of my very unspectacular elementary school career. It'd be a lot more fun to think about and talk about what do we mean by infinity than it is to do my multiplication tables.
Yes, well, and I think that in terms of engagement, philosophy can link back to your plus and minus and multiplication tables, because if you're excited about the philosophy of mathematics, you might want to go back to some of the more rote learning tasks that we have to do. So yeah, I think it is really engaging, and I think that they feed into one another.
So how does it work in the classroom? You're sitting up at the front, and you read them a passage from Wittgenstein, do you? Or what?
I think further down the road we get into that. That can be confusing for many adults. I think I might excite them with a question like, if you could drink a magic potion that would give you all knowledge, would you, should you? And then you can see them thinking, and is this a real problem? And some will say, oh, but you can't have a magic potion to do that. And then I say, oh, wait. Let's just pretend for a moment. And you can capture their imagination. And then you can start having discussions based on these hypotheticals. There are many questions that can be fun and accessible for kids, like, what would your ideal school be like? What would your ideal playground be like? Some kids just really even love good old-fashioned ones, like, what's the meaning of life? It's amazing to see how they'll just give it a go and have their hand at it and see what comes out.
What kinds of things do they tell you?
Oh, it's so interesting. I think about we were exploring the philosophical question of, where is your mind? And this is a question in philosophy of mind. And so we started talking about things like consciousness. A child brought that up, and being awake. And kids will say things like, well, my mind is in my head. It's right here. So that's like a little scientist. And then someone else said, I think my mind is all around me, because when I have ideas, sometimes people steal them and pull them out of my head, so they must be floating out all around me. And you realize from listening to kids that their experience, it can be refreshing as an adult, and it can make you really think about that. Like, where is your mind? Is it in your head, or is it all around you?
But you don't provide you don't give them definitive answers to things. The youngster doesn't go home and at the dinner table and say, oh, Mummy, Miss Poirier says there is no God.
No. Well, I mean, most students will have to figure out what my philosophies are by extrapolating my behaviors. I don't directly discuss them. I want them to focus, to turn it around to them. And I have had kids ask me that question. I have had a kid say, Miss Poirier, do you believe in God? And it caught me off guard. And in that moment, what I had to do was think, why is this child asking this question? How can I help that child to address that question in their own lives? And so, I always want to have discussion with the families and to bring the family into the classroom and let them see what we do.
So you wouldn't get into Pascal's wager then? You wouldn't say?
I think it's really important to respect the school culture and the communities that you're in. And of course, I believe in teaching for social justice, and I want to push my students and push the community to analyze these deep, important questions. But I'm always sensitive of the culture that I'm working in. And so, we're going to start small.
My guest this morning is Tiffany Poirier. She's a teacher with the Surrey Board of Education in British Columbia, and she teaches philosophy to very young children in her elementary school class. And she is the author and illustrator of a book called Q is for Question, an ABC of Philosophy. And this is a delightful book, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I hate people like you who can write and draw at the same time and do all... just going through, it's alphabetized, right? A is for this, B is for that. Under R, what are your rights? Are rights equal for all? Which rights apply to an animal? There you're moving out of philosophy into ethics, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ethics is a part of philosophy, and those questions, I mean, kids very often have an affinity for animals, and so I do find that they love to discuss what are the rights of animals.
Under S, is there a soul? Of what is it made? Who gets a soul? Do souls ever fade? Mm-hmm. What kind of response does that draw?
Well, people will obviously bring their different upbringings into the question. Like they could say, from my faith, we believe in a soul, or I haven't heard this term before. But with this book, I believe that any one of these questions could be addressed within any school and addressed with respect and balance, so long as you have that safe community built.
But that's a very tricky balance, isn't it? Because we're jumping all over teachers these days for bringing their own sense of morality into the classroom or teaching values and that kind of thing. Aren't you treading a fine line between advocacy and understanding?
Right. Well, I don't, like I said, I don't put my views on center stage. And I think that we have to be honest that everything that a teacher does in every way that they behave, and not just teachers, all people, you are living a moral life. And my job as a teacher, I'm bound by codes of ethics and professionalism, and I'm not out to teach specific philosophies, but I would like to be a good role model, and I would like to address issues in the curriculum and help kids to be free thinkers. And so I see that as my primary goal, and I need to give them challenging questions. But of course, if there's ever anything sensitive, I do want to have that open dialogue with the school community.
Yeah. What about the parents? Are they lukewarm to this? They support it? Are they keen?
Well, that's been really exciting, because sometimes the first time I'll meet a parent is they'll come in and they'll say, "Oh, you can't believe Susie came home and she said this most amazing idea about philosophy, and we had this great dinner conversation, and I just want to tell you that was really cool." Like, it's neat how it can start dialogues in families, and the parents will get excited, and that's been really neat, because I'll find them coming in and we'll just start engaging in a philosophical dialogue, and I think it's a great way to bring the community together.
You wrote in an essay sometime, you said you used to, as a very young girl, maybe you were 4 or 5 or something, you used to lie awake at night and ponder these questions of who am I and what is happiness. And where do you get that? Were you always interested in the big questions?
I think so, and when I think back as early as I can, I asked big questions of the universe because I was enchanted by it, and I was confused, and I did have a childhood loss. My father passed away when I was 5 in a helicopter accident, and
he died in a helicopter.
He died, and God. It was traumatic, and I was struggling to understand, and I remember sort of writing letters to God and saying, "Why would you do this?" and trying to make sense of it for myself. And I haven't stopped that questioning process, and I know that my students live complex lives too, and we can't pretend that they're not. Children don't live in a bubble.
Was that, I don't want to probe too deeply, but was that questioning fueled by anger? Were you mad at God? Or?
I think when I was a child, I certainly, there are different stages of grief, and I think I was very sad. I was curious. I didn't understand where this other place called death was, and I mean, that's a question of metaphysics. What happens? And so I think children see their world as complex, and we can't stop those questions. We have to accept them. We have to invite them to investigate. It's a part of being human, and it's a part of living a rich and beautiful and meaningful life.
Is it difficult for you, or has it come up in your classroom, this question of death? Maybe a child has lost a parent or a friend or something. Has that come up in your discussions?
Not that I can recall within the philosophical dialogue. We've had so many dialogues, so I can't think of a specific instance. But I know that children's lives come into the classroom, whatever's happening at home. I do remember one student, when we had witnessed a shooting. This was in Vancouver, and was very traumatized. This is when we had quite a bit of gang violence that was happening in Vancouver, and he was very upset. And this was a young student, and just wanted to ask questions like, why would someone do this? Will this happen to me? And of course I want to refer them to the school counselor and make sure that student has support. But that student is going to be interacting with students on the playground, and these questions, they're part of their lives, and they need to be equipped with the language and the ideas to address them in ways that will be satisfactory and help them to coexist with these issues.
You study philosophy at university and of course are widely read in it. I'm wondering if you think that any teacher can introduce these concepts into the classroom, because you have a very special take on this, not only on the subject of philosophy, but on children themselves. And it's not I don't think it's something any teacher can simply pick up a book and do you? You teach them. I know you talk to them, but... Yeah,
I've worked... I absolutely believe that any teacher, any parent, any person who cares about young people can to take that leap and to engage with children about meaningful issues. And certainly it helps if you have a little bit of background in philosophy and you can make links to what's gone on in the history of philosophy. But you really could start with a profound question and a space for listening, and just to open that up and to, I think if you approach teaching as a listener, then you'll be amazed at what can happen. You don't need to teach. You need to give space and give listening and to follow. So that's what I mean by being a facilitator. And I think teachers do a great job of that. And it's just it's a process skill, really. It's more about the process and less about the content per se.
Did you ever have a teacher like you?
Well, I would say I've had some amazing teachers in my past, and I felt for the first time excited by the questions of philosophy in grade 12. I was a part of a program called the International Baccalaureate Program, and one of the courses is Theory of Knowledge. So that was my first official awakening to philosophy. And then in university, it was amazing to all of a sudden have all these people around me talking about things that I perceived really mattered. What is this existence? And that was so exciting, and it's what makes me feel so alive. And so I love to carry that excitement forward in my work with students.
Boy, I wish I'd had a teacher like that, like you, in grade 4 or 5.
Thank you.
You might have taught me how to pass arithmetic as well as understand philosophy.
Well, I think you're doing pretty well with the questions, and I would turn that back to you. I would say, where did you get your passion for questions and listening?
By reading Q is for Question. I think it's a book. I just found it on my desk. Great pleasure to meet you on the radio.
Oh, my pleasure. It's all my honor.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Tiffany Poirier is a teacher with the Surrey School Board. She's also the author and the illustrator of Q is for Question, an ABC of philosophy. Q is for Question is published by O Books. This morning, Tiffany Poirier was in our studio in Vancouver. You are listening to the Sunday edition across Canada on CBC Radio 1 and across North America on Sirius Satellite 159.